points out that it's more saddening than scary, which is my experience with this reality that we're living in now. And it's kind of interesting what his response was. Part of it is he said, "Are we letting them ask the questions they have? Are we engaging with the facts of their lives and trying to offer what the Catholic Church and Christianity has to offer?" Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Wolf Catholic Podcast, the very first episode of a hopefully long journey. I'm your host, Sean Sassy, and the campus minister at the Newman Center at the University of West Georgia, joined by Father Gorov, otherwise known as Father G, the chaplain at this ministry. Father G, how are you doing?
I'm doing excellent today, Sean. How are you? It's great. I'm excited about this journey too.
Yes, it's going to be hopefully not as difficult as I've read. I've probably watched 10 hours of how to do a podcast, and it has culminated over the past couple weeks, and we are here. I have a cheap webcam. I have this cheap computer that I use here at the Catholic Center, and I'm just ready to roll. So what we're going to be discussing today is an interview that Father Mike Schmitz did with Time Magazine, and what we're going to highlight is the aspects of that article that dealt with campus ministry and how Father Mike responded to those questions and kind of how we see that playing out on our campus today and what we see our students dealing with from my perspective as a campus minister and from Father G's perspective as a priest. So we're going to dive right into that. If that sounds good to you, Father.
Absolutely does. This was a very interesting article to read. So yeah, I'm looking forward to this.
Definitely. And this article was kind of he was invited to do this piece with Time Magazine based on the popularity of the Bible in a Year podcast. And I know I was really impacted by that podcast, and it seems like it was the number one podcast at one time, which is incredible. As much scrutiny as the Bible gets, that people seem to be hungering for that. Do you kind of have that same sense in today's society that they're kind of searching for the word and kind of what it provides?
Yeah, Sean. I listened to the Bible in a Year. I think the first year it came out, and I was struck by the fact that it was like the number one podcast. And I remember at Mass mentioning that, and like a lot of people in the parish were already listening to Father Mike Schmitz
Right.
podcast. So it's kind of exciting to know that it had that kind of reach and impact. And I think it's given him a great platform, which is why someone like, this is the New York Times magazine, this is what the New York Times of all people is interviewing him to get his sense, of what his ministry is like. So I think it's exciting.
Definitely. And I agree. I see the hunger for that objectivity on campus, because you're seeing a lot of, depressed, sad, kind of searching souls on campus. And I see that in our students. And something like this podcast, where it's easily obtainable and can just be listened to when you're driving or running or whatever, I think is a great way to evangelize. So without further ado, let's dive into the first question. And this is from the interviewer asking Father Mike Schmitz. He says, "Given your podcast popularity, I'm sure your listeners constitute a pretty broad demographic, but in your daily life, you minister to college kids, and young people are among those least likely to identify as Catholic. What accounts for that?" And I just want to first open the floor to that question between you and I, and kind of see how you would answer that before we dive into what Father Mike said.
Yeah, I mean, I think just like you do, I see it everywhere, Sean. When I look out of the parish, at Mass, whenever I go anywhere, you see the demographic pyramid, right? Like the most of the people are 50 and over, or even older. And then as you go down the generations, it's like narrower and narrower numbers of people. And as that statistic that the article quoted said, that like 17% in 2014, 17% of all Catholics were between the ages of 18 and 29. So I see it. It's very much a reality. Why is it? I mean, that's a whole conversation, but I mean, we are in an increasingly less religious society, where religion, in the sense of being identified with what people call organized religion, what people called a church or institutions, like that's just not the way people like live out their spiritual lives these days. So it's very much a reality, I think, that you see, I see, we all see.
Right, definitely. And coming from a convert's perspective, when I was in college, I wasn't anything. I was at best agnostic, and uh, I see how easy it is to fall into that trap of kind of just going with the flow of life and thinking that all there is what the society is pushing on you as happiness. And I think that's kind of why the the need for religion is kind of just dissipated for our youth, and you're seeing that more and more occur more and more at younger and younger ages, and it can be discouraging, but there is a great hope in the will of God, and that kind of spurs us, I'm sure you as well, to continue to do what we can in our small community, and then just hope that has a domino effect.
Yeah, that's a very good point, Sean. I think it's the human heart is the human heart, right? So we still long for goodness and truth and beauty. It's just people don't look to the church or to religion for answers, right? When we, like, most of the time when we want something, we go here, right? We go to Wikipedia or to Google or something. But for like the important questions, like for so many people, Christianity is old. Christianity is like nothing to offer. All it offers is oppression. It offers narrow mindedness. It's closed minded. We saw that sort of in the kinds of questions that later on in that interview that Father Mike Schmitz was asked and how he dealt with it. So it's like people don't think that the answers that always come up in the human heart, this is not where they're going to go look for uh, look for the answers to those questions. So that's one big thing. It's like we're just not on their radar for so many people. They've
Right.
just like written us off.
Right. No, you're definitely right, and it can be scary. And Father Mike points out that it's more saddening than scary, which is my experience
Right.
with this reality that we're living in now. Uh, and it's kind of interesting what his response was. Part of it is he said, "Are we letting them ask the questions they have? Are we engaging with the facts of their lives and trying to offer what the Catholic Church and Christianity has to offer?" Uh, and he says, "I'm a Catholic because I believe it's true." And this, I think this is a great question to look at the church and ask if we are doing that. If
Yeah.
in our small communities, in our parishes, are we letting them ask the questions that they have and answering them with boldness and truth? And I know I never experienced that growing up, or going through my faith journey up until my experience with Christ, and kind of my conversion story is a whole nother topic. But like, I didn't experience any of that until I was 23 years old. And so I kind of wonder if something similar has happened with our youth as a whole.
Right. No, I mean that's a huge challenge, and there's even more studies that show that young
Mm-hmm.
people, like, they may be in our pews, but they've mentally already left, because where do they get their information? They're getting it from school, from TikTok, from
Mm-hmm.
social media, and the answers that they've found, which resonate and which are real for them, have very little to do with a Christian answer to life. And so they've already left while they're still in place. They're just waiting to get out of the house, and then they're cut free. So the and the, I think what I see as a challenge as a priest is, like, we have very limited resources, um, limited time. We have personnel is, finding people who are committed, who want to teach, who want to really accompany and walk with young people is tough. And so being able to do that in a good way, doing it well, is difficult. And I think we need to invest a lot more of our resources in truly presenting the beauty and the truth of the gospel, um, in a real way, not manipulate people, n- just authentically, that this is what it means to follow Christ, and this is and our lives have to witness that, right? If we're not doing that, then none of this is going to work. We're not trying to sell a product. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, no, definitely. You're definitely right there, and I can relate to that for sure. So this kind of leads into our next question that Time Magazine had for Father Mike, which is more relative to our campus and our students that do come to the Catholic Center here at West Georgia, and kind of their role in all this, and how we, as leaders, religious leaders, can kind of send them out there into the fire, basically, and deal with this reality of kind of the secular culture, and how that looks and how to walk confidently.
Yeah.
And so, what the Time Magazine asked Father G, I'm about to ask you, Father G, uh, how do you talk to your students about staying true to one's religious beliefs and advocating for them while also living in a pluralistic society? What do you think?
Right. That's a great question, and I think there's a lot of things that come to mind. But first, I think with each person that we encounter, um, that we have to get to know him or her
Mm-hmm.
for who she or he is,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and really like the earlier questions, like what is the question in their heart.
Right.
We're not trying to indoctrinate them with like a set series of answers that they can like go out and like put on the internet or win an argument. It's like, where's your heart? What's going on? What is your experience of life, and where is God? How do those things connect? So
Mm-hmm.
the first step has to be that proclamation of the goodness of God and his love for us,
Mm-hmm.
um, and that in Christ, that desire, that those questions, who you are, you have a home and a place in Christ. I think that's the first foundation. And on that we can build and say, this is the Christian story. This is how we have understood, and this is how we have
Mm-hmm.
lived. This is how thousands and countless millions of people down the ages have lived the mystery of life, of reality, of love, of heartbreak, romance,
Mm-hmm.
uh, life, death, everything, the whole drama of human existence, which is so beautiful and so mysterious and rich, that this story, this way of living, and this person, Jesus Christ, that's where it all comes together. So I think really facilitating that authentic atmosphere for people to truly feel that they're welcome. Um, and then yeah, like listen to the questions and say, hey, these are the answers that we have. How
Mm-hmm.
does that connect to where your heart is? And then I think the one of the other big things we see, especially like especially since the pandemic, right,
Mm-hmm.
is where's like the need for community, the
Right.
need for belonging, the need to be part of a people. Um, and I really hope that here at the Catholic Center, at the Newman Center, we can really provide that no matter what's going on, you'll be loved here. You have a place, and it's a place that's fun, that's great, but also it's a place that's um, where the real questions can be tackled. So I don't know. Those are some initial thoughts that come to mind there. What do you think, Sean?
Yeah, yeah, I think it's great. So where I get stuck at with this question is the sending part. And so it's like, okay, you build them up, you have confidence in them, you think, they're ready, and then like you got to send them, and you got to, like, they have to, you know, do it, right? You have to, I mean, at the end of the day, you have to proclaim the gospel in whatever unique way is required by whatever individual. And I think me being a convert, which I don't know where I heard this, but they said whenever someone converts to Catholicism, they should be put in a closet for 6 months so they don't go out and scare everyone, because of how like on fire they are. And I
How
don't,
intense? Yeah.
yeah. So I think that I kind of uh, still have a little bit of that where I'm just like, come on, like, don't you know this is true? Like, just go out there. How can you not want to just shake everyone until they believe? I know that's not the way to do it, and I've learned that through trial and error. Um, but I think that it is super important to establish Christ in these students' hearts before you're telling them how to go out there and evangelize and proclaim the gospel. Because as you know, if Christ isn't at the center of your life and you yourself don't have a deep relationship with Him, how are you going to go out there and be that light for those people to see?
Right.
And and that's kind of what I realized as well. Like everyone out there isn't they don't want to see the light like blind them. You know, they want to have an inviting warmth um, come towards them, and that's kind of the way you do it. You don't just go up to someone and yell, "Christ has risen, believe or go to hell," right? So you have to do it out of love, and that it has to be like for the love of the other person as they are, whether you don't like them, whether you like them, etc. And that's kind of what I've slowly realized here at the Catholic Center with the students is I have to first love them and make sure that their relationship with Christ is deepening before they can go out there. And that does take patience, but you know, in this society, specifically this campus, it's very secular and it's really difficult to express your faith, especially being Catholic. I've realized that it's really tough out there because we table twice a week on campus, and man, it's really rough. You get bad looks, you get people kind of laughing at you, and that's you know that's just us tabling. That's not even just having a conversation. So I can imagine what things they would say to us if they actually talk to us. Um, and so first off, I think for you and I, specifically campus ministers, you have to realize the task at hand and put yourself out there so you can relate to what you're going to be tasking these students, what Christ is going to be tasking them with, and walk with them in that journey. And I think that's kind of the most important part of this. And I think Father Mike kind of spoke on the same line of that.
Oh, definitely. I think you got that phrase there, walking with or accompanying
Hmm.
is so important. That's I think what I see you doing here. I think that's our hope for the Newman Center here at UWG. Definitely.
Yeah. So like we've already talked about this piece with Time Magazine, I think it's just great that Father Mike got a interview with Time Magazine. As I'm sure you've probably seen some pretty negative headlines about Catholicism from Time Magazine. So it's pretty refreshing to see this one. Uh, and Father Mike kind of defend the faith because you see in the article, he's trying to get the big things out of Father Mike to say something bad so he can headline it. But Father Mike did a great job.
Oh yeah, he did a great job. Now you want to talk about hostility? I spent like 15 minutes yesterday after you sent me the article,
Hmm.
uh, going through the comments, and they were
Oh,
almost universally just hostile,
yes.
just absolutely hostile. Um,
Yeah.
and it just shows that this is what people think of the church and Christianity, right?
Yeah.
Um, Now things are always more exaggerated online, but it's a real feeling. People do not trust us. Um,
Yeah.
People think that we are outdated, we are oppressive, we only want to control women's bodies, we want to hate people, um, and yeah. So in the midst of that, um, I don't know. I think we have to be true witnesses to the fact that no, God is love.
Hmm.
He loved me. He saved me from my own wickedness and sinfulness, and my life makes no sense
Yeah.
without Jesus Christ, whom the Lord has sent. So it was a very fascinating article, and yeah, to see again to see the New York Times give this kind of coverage to Father Mike Schmitz is really.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And I'll post a link down in the bio for this podcast so you guys can click and read it for yourself. There's a lot of great things we didn't go over. We just went over the things that related to campus ministry, but there's a lot of great uh, questions and answers by Father Mike in that article. So we're going to end this podcast with Father G doesn't know I'm doing this a random Catholic question and answer, spontaneous, off the cuff for Father G because I know a lot of people, you know, are wondering, and not everyone that listens to this is going to be Catholic. So I kind of want to get, you know, just a random question and answer in there from a priest perspective. So, are you ready for the question?
Sure, yeah, bring it on.
Okay, so I'm also making this question up right now. So, how do we know when our guardian angel is with us, and what signs are we going to see? Are we going to see them? Like how does that work? Like what, like when someone says, when a Catholic says, oh yeah, my guardian angel is always with me, what does that mean? And like, does that mean they're seeing them like poop? Like, what does that mean?
um, the there's no how do we know? We know that every person. I mean, this is out of scripture.
Mhm.
Uh, that there is an angel that God um, assigns, if you will, or commends the protection of each person to one of the spiritual creatures, the guardian angels, as they're known as, and they're with us. Um, they're with us at all times. So yeah, there's no like, oh, my angel's gone off to a nap and I need to wake him up or something. He's with us, and if you think about it, like the way the Lord works in the biblical revelation of things, God creates, and then there's this hierarchy of beings through which he operates, right? There's the angels and the visible world as well. Everything sort of has its own place.
Right.
There's what we call secondary causes. God works through his plan, works through free agents, us, angels, then the animal kingdom doing its own thing, everything reflecting God's goodness and beauty. And in that, so he has given charge to his angels to guard us, to keep us, not so much necessarily with our earthly physical good, because I mean, look around, people
Yeah.
people get into all kinds of messes, but
Mm-hmm.
really with the end, our supernatural good, that they're there to help us and guard us, and to lead us to the good. And so I think it's important that we develop a relationship and trust, and ask the help of this spiritual creature, that the spiritual being that God has given one of his beings, one of Christ's angels that we have, um, that is assigned to protect us. We ask for the intercessions, and one day, please God, when we are with the Lord and with all the angels and saints, we'll see them and meet them, and it's just kind of mind blowing and crazy to think like what that would look like, right?
Yeah.
Would that even be like to be with the angels and the saints, and to see this creature from all eternity, who's so intelligent, so superior to us, who in love and humility accepted the care of our soul. That'll be awesome.
Yeah, well, that's great. So we'll be doing one of these questions at the end of every podcast. We're planning on posting this every Friday, weekly, and hopefully it'll be 20 to 30 minutes every time. We may run short, we may run long. Like we said, this is our first podcast. Welcome to this journey with us. This podcast is probably gonna look a lot different than a podcast 50 episodes from now, but God willing, we'll make it, and it'll grow. And if you guys like it, we'll continue to grow. If you have any questions, or you want us to talk about a certain topic, just let us know, and we can maybe fit that into one of these episodes. But Father G, thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you again next week on the Wolf Catholic Podcast. Thank you, and God bless.
God bless, guys.